Hi folks, I'm Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA and an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to navigate QuickBooks Online the fastest way possible. If you use QuickBooks Online right now and you don't know any of these advanced navigation tips and tricks, you probably feel that the workflow is a little bit slow. I guarantee you by the end of this video, you will not feel that way anymore. And also, you might want to check out all the way to the end of the video because the very last tip I'll show you, it will blow your mind. Before we start, let me make a quick point. I actually teach this at national accounting conferences, and this class is usually between an hour and an hour and a half long. For your benefit, I have compressed it and made it under 45 minutes. This is going to go super fast, and if I go too fast, just hit pause, rewind, and watch it again. So don't stress about that. So there's going to be a ton of content, so get ready to learn probably the most you have ever learned about QuickBooks Online and Google Chrome shortcuts in 45 minutes. Anyway, we're going to cover 4 basic elements. Basic navigation within QuickBooks Online. So once you're in QuickBooks Online, what do you need to know how to press and how to use in order to navigate it the fastest possible way? Second, we're going to talk about Google Chrome shortcuts. So we recommend that you use Google Chrome, not Safari, not Firefox, not Internet Explorer. Use Google Chrome as your browser. It is the fastest way to work with QuickBooks Online, and I'll prove it to you once we talk about those shortcuts. 3, we'll talk about QuickBooks Online keyboard shortcuts. There are some sort of quasi-hidden keyboard shortcuts inside QuickBooks Online that would actually allow you to work much faster once you know them. And lastly, as I mentioned, I'm going to show you my ultimate QBO bookmarks menu that will really speed up your workflow. Let's jump to basic QuickBooks Online navigation. So we're going to be talking about the left navigation bar, the gear menu, the search box, advanced search, and the new transactions button. In the description below, I'm going to put timestamps so you can go straight to the specific feature or specific demonstration for the shortcut that you want to go to. So make sure you go in the description and check that out. Let's start with the left navigation bar. So that's a big gray bar on the left side of the screen that has access to all the mostly used areas. Now, sometimes I don't want to see that, so I want to see as much real estate as possible. So I'll click on the hamburger icon or the icon with the 3 lines. And once you click on that, that collapses the left navigation bar. If I click on it again, it expands it. Now, not in every window, you're going to see that left navigation bar. So for example, if I'm creating an invoice, that left navigation bar is sort of going to be hidden or behind the scenes. So there's no way to expand it or collapse it. I actually have to get out of the invoice altogether to be able to go back into sort of the home screen where the left navigation bar is there. So at any point in time when the left navigation bar is there, just click on that icon to expand and collapse, and that's a really important first step. Second, the gear menu. On the top right of QuickBooks Online, you're going to see the gear menu. It's important for you to know what it's called and what the function is. Basically, some of the additional tools not related to new transactions, access to all your lists, products and services, recurrent transactions, attachments. Actually, if I click on all list, you're going to see all the tables, all the mini databases inside QuickBooks Online, such as chart of accounts, products and services, locations, classes, terms. You need to know where to go sometimes in order to get into those lists and change them. Most of these lists are going to show up in drop-down menu. So anytime you see a drop-down menu and you don't like the options that you see there, most likely you're going to be able to go into this list section and change what that drop-down menu looks like. Now let's talk about the search box. Probably the most underrated, amazing tool inside QuickBooks Online. That's a big magnifying icon you see on the top right of the screen. When you click on the search box, a couple of things are going to be really obvious. One, all the way in the bottom, you're going to see quick tips. So up arrow, down arrow to navigate, enter to select, and escape to dismiss. What does that mean? That means if I press escape, it will close down the search box. If I click on it again, it will open it. If I click on the down arrow, it will go up and down that list. If I press enter, it will select the transaction that is highlighted. Now, recent transactions is the last 10 transactions that I created or edited inside QuickBooks Online. If I want to go back to any of them, let's say I want to go back into this expense, I press enter and it will open that transaction. Now, escape on your keyboard will close whatever is open. So that's a really good keyboard shortcut to know. All right, let's go a little deeper into the search box. Now, real quick, we're going to cover keyboard shortcuts a little bit later on. But if you want to open that search box with a keyboard shortcut, you hit Control-Alt-F or Control-Option-F if you are on a Mac. So once you click on the keyboard shortcut, that search box will open up. Now I'm going to search by a dollar amount. So I'm going to put 1000. 1,000. And what this will do is we'll search all the transactions that either have 1,000 in a text description, 1,000 as the numerical value of the transaction, so invoice 1,000, check number 1,000, or $1,000 either as the entire transaction amount or the specific line item amount. So it's really, really powerful, but it's a really broad search. So for example, let's say I'm only looking for $1,000 and I want to ignore invoice 1,000, check number 1,000, bill number 1,000. So all I have to do is add a $sign to that search, and then QuickBooks Online search box knows that what I'm searching is only a dollar amount. Now I can also omit the dollar amount and then put 1,000 and the decimal, so 0.00, and then QuickBooks will also know, because you're using decimals, that is probably a numerical search. Now, one thing that's really awesome on the search box is you're going to see the recent transactions, which is a list of the last 10 transactions that were created or saved by any user. Now, you're going to see a little copy button here next to it, which is amazing, which means if I just created an invoice that looks a lot like the next invoice I want to create, all I have to do is click on that copy button and it'll create a brand new transaction that looks exactly like the previous transaction. And at that point, I can simply just select the customer name, add additional description, maybe change some of the items, but it'll be a great starting point for creating a new transaction, not from scratch. That will save you tons of time. Now, a really awesome feature on the search box when I click on search is being able to search text within a transaction. So I'm going to type AAA, and I actually have a customer called AAA Industries, so it's going to look for all the transactions related to that customer. Now, also, if you notice this expense here, I'm going to click on this expense. It's actually not related to AAA, the customer is related to some other vendor, but in the description somewhere, I actually typed AAA. So when you type text, it will search within the customer's name, vendor name, and also the text or description within the transaction, which is pretty amazing. Now I'm going to go back and type AAA again and show you one more thing. Notice that this is split into two, transactions and contacts. So right now I got a customer named AAA, and if I click on that, it will take me straight into my customers menu, which will show me a list of all my transactions related to AAA. And actually, I can actually also click on edit and edit that customer if I need to do that. Now I'm going to click on the search box again, and I'm going to go down to where it says advanced search. Now advanced search is really, really, really cool. Actually, it's so cool that what I like to do is I like to create a bookmark for it, because I go back to this function many, many times. So number one, you want to make sure that your bookmarks menu, which is basically just like some extra space under that URL screen, it's enabled. If I don't see the bookmarks menu, you're going to see no extra space under it, and you're going to see the website right under the URL. So if you want to see the bookmarks menu, you have to click on the three little dots to the right on the top URL bar. All the way to the right, there's the three little dots that basically opens up a menu that gives you a lot of other controls. Now, under bookmarks, so you're going to select bookmarks. You're going to go where it says show bookmarks bars. That's actually really important. You want to show your bookmarks bar. If you got a bunch of crappy bookmarks from your 10 years of browsing the internet, I probably would delete all of them, or create a folder, right click and create a folder and dump all your old bookmarks in there, because they're probably not going to help you navigate QuickBooks Online better. Your QuickBooks Online bookmarks will. And this is what I was referring to when we first started. At the very end of the video, I'm going to go back and show you how I build this ultimate bookmarks menu that actually contains every single transaction type, every single screen in QuickBooks in this one bookmark menu that you click on, and you can browse every single function inside QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to show you at the end kind of how I put that together. Anyway, so if I want to bookmark this search page, all I have to do is click on the little lock to the left of the URL, click and drag that bad boy right there into the URL bar. You will notice a little line letting you know this is where it's going to dump it. Let that go, and now I have the search box. So no matter where I am in QuickBooks, if I want to do an advanced search, I just click on that search and boom, I go straight into my advanced search. Now, why do I love advanced search so much? Well, check this out. I'm going to search for transactions that are $1,000. Now, I can search all transactions or transactions line. The difference is if I search all transactions lines, I'm looking only inside individual transaction lines and not the overall dollar amount. And if I click on all transactions, it will actually search both the transaction lines and the total of the transaction itself. So I'm going to go here where it says amount, and then I'm going to put here 1,000. And notice that there's amount, line, or total. So you got both options there. So I'm actually going to use line or total. That's actually better. So I'm going to put here 1,000 and then click on search. So now that found 4 transactions that have $1,000. So that's either $1,000 as the overall transaction amount or $1,000 inside one of the line items. For example, look at this third one here that's actually worth 4,000. If I click on that, you will notice that one of the lines is worth 1,000, and that's why I found that. So you're going to have to figure out, do I want to search within a transaction line or only an overall total? So if I click on amount instead of line or total, just amount, and I put here 1,000 and I click on search, it's not going to search within that line item. So it's up to you really how you want to use it. Now, something that I really love about this screen is the option to add a filter. So add a filter basically means that you can do a search within a search within a search. So for example, if I wanted to search not just $1,000, but $1,000 for one specific vendor, this one called XXX Corporation, actually, that's a customer. So I'm going to go to search, and then I'm going to click on display name. So I switched amount to display name, and then here I'm going to type XXX, and then I'm going to click on add filter. So what this will do is we'll actually search not just $1,000, but every single vendor or customer that I'm using that has XXX as part of their name. So that's actually pretty amazing. And I can be exact, so I can click on the drop down and specifically select the vendor and then click on search, or I can delete the vendor and just type XXX and then do a search. And you will notice here that it will say display name, and there's a squiggly line letting you know that this is sort of approximate, not an exact search. So I'll show you an example. Let's go to amount line, and let's also do everything that's greater than $5,000. And I'm going to click on add filter, and there it is. So now it's sort of a filter within a filter. So you can really layer those filters to find the specific transaction that you're looking for. Now, one of the most obvious features that I think you're probably familiar with it, but it's worth mentioning anyway, it's the new transactions button. That's going to be in the left navigation bar. If I collapse the left navigation bar, I won't have access to it. So I have to click on the left navigation. I have to click on that hamburger icon to be able to enable that. Now, once I click on the new transactions button, there's all sorts of functions in there. Now, something that's pretty cool, if I actually don't want to move my mouse all the way to the new button, what I can do is I can hit Control Alt D or Control Options D on the Mac, and then I will do it. And you'll notice very subtly it highlighted that. I'm going to show you that again. Let me click somewhere else. I'm going to zoom this in so you can see it. So I'm going to hit Control Option D on the Mac or Control Alt D on the PC, and you will notice that it will highlight. Now, the advantage of having it highlighted is that if I press space, it allows you to really quick see the menu, so you don't have to click on the new button. Nah, that might be useful or not. Who knows? We'll see. So, all right. So you can actually click on whatever transaction you want to create. Let's say, for example, I want to click on Add Bill, and they will open the new bill screen. Now, the one thing I want to highlight is if you're always creating bills and you don't want to click on the new button and then go find the bill, you can just add it to your shortcuts menu. So click on that little icon to the left of the URL, click and drag that bad boy there, and there it is. It's now a bookmark menu. Now, bookmarks are awesome because you can click on the bookmarks menu all the way in the top of your Google Chrome menu bar, and you can select it from there, or you can right there under the URL, you can click on any of them and go straight into that transaction. That's really awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into the dashboard and talk about the next set of shortcuts. So let's talk about Google Chrome shortcuts. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you want to be using Google Chrome, not Safari, not Internet Explorer, not Firefox. All these things are going to work really, really well in Google Chrome. And I think QuickBooks Online was pretty much designed to work in Google Chrome anyway. So that's why I would recommend to use Google Chrome, period. Let's talk about new tab, new window, new Chrome user, bookmarks, which is we started touching on, and zoom in and zoom out, which is essential. So let's start with new tab. So for example, if I'm on this screen and I don't want to lose whatever I'm looking at, but I do want to open another screen because I want to look at something else, I can just go wherever I want to go. So let's say, for example, I want to go into expenses and I want to go into the expenses menu. But instead of just clicking on expenses, I'm going to right click. So right mouse button and then click on new tab. What that will do is up here in the top, it will open a new tab and it won't close whatever I'm working on right now. Now, something else you can do, instead of right clicking, what you can do is you can control click or command click on the Mac. And then when you control click or command click, it will also open the new tab. So that will also save you doing the right click and finding that menu there. So actually a really, really awesome thing. Now, something else you can do is you can open a new window altogether. Now, let's say, for example, I want to go into vendors, but I want to open a new window. So I right click and then I'm going to click on open link in new window. Now, the way my Mac is set up, the new window pops up, maximize, and it kind of hid whatever was behind it. So if I want to do sort of like a split screen, I can just move my mouse all the way to any of the corners of that window, click and drag that to the right, and then click on the window that's behind it, go to the other corner. I'm going to go to another corner here and click and drag that to the left. And now I basically essentially have a split screen. Now, this could be really useful when looking maybe at a profit and loss or a balance sheet next to each other. So I'm going to go to reports and go to profit and loss. And if you go to profit and loss a lot, you guessed it, let's go ahead and bookmark it. So I'm going to click on bookmark this tab. I'll give it a name. Let's call it profit and loss. Click on done. And there it is. That's the equivalent of clicking and dragging. So now I could go straight to the profit and loss from there. And let's say on here on the right side, I want to go to the balance sheet. So I go to reports, go to balance sheet. I should probably bookmark this thing too. So let's bookmark this tab and call it balance sheet. There we go. And now I can have the balance sheet on one side, the profit and loss on the other. Of course, I would collapse the left navigation bar because that would actually make it really useful. There you go. So now I got P&L on one window, balance sheet on the other window. Really awesome stuff. Now, one of the common questions I get is, what if I want to open a report from a different QuickBooks Online company file? Now, if you use QuickBooks Online, you know that once you log into a different company file, it'll completely log you out of the current one that you're logged in right now. So one of the solutions to that is to have multiple Google Chrome users. Let me close this one right here. I'm going to keep this one sort of half set up on the left side so I can kind of illustrate this concept. So to open up a second Google Chrome user, which is the only way to be able to open a different QuickBooks Online company file, we're going to go right there next to the three dots. There's usually like little face icon there, or if you created a custom icon, there would be a custom icon there. You click on that and tell you whether or not you're logged in. So if you use Google services like Gmail and stuff, you can do some sort of syncing. We'll skip that for a minute, but click down here where it says other people. So you can actually click on add, and we can give it a name. Let's call it second QBO company. Spell that correctly, that'd be nice. And I will choose one of the icons. I'll choose the monkey here and then click on add. So what this will let me know, and I'm going to click and drag this to the right, this will let me know that this little monkey, it's one session. So when I get logged into QuickBooks Online, every window that has a little monkey icon will let me know that that's that company file. And on this one, I probably should set up one as well, so I kind of like have the other icon to make it really easy for me to understand. So I'll do the panda here, and we'll call this one first QBO company. And I click on add. So what I'll do is I'm just going to X out of the other one and kind of show you that concept. So now I got the panda on the left side. I got the monkey on the right side. Basically two different QuickBooks Online users, two separate Google Chrome users, which have their own name that we kind of created. We call this one second company, and we call this one first QBO company. I know it gets a little bit confusing. You kind of have to try it, do it yourself before you kind of understand exactly what's going on. But let's go ahead and log into QuickBooks Online with two different windows that you see. So I'm going to go to qbo.intuit.com, and that's going to take me to a login screen. I'm going to go on this side, qbo.intuit.com, and take me to the other QuickBooks Online screen. So these are two different Chrome users. So on the left side, I can put one email address and click on sign in. And here I got a company file called Advanced Webinar Systems on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I'm going to use a different login altogether. And there we go. Notice on the right-hand side, I got a company called Hector's Construction and Decorating. So I can actually navigate these separately. So I can go to reports, I can go to profit and loss. Let me do here all dates and click on run. And here I got one company I'm looking at on the right hand side. Let me go on the left and click on reports, profit and loss. Let's click on all dates and then click on run. And I got an entirely different company on the left hand side. So this multiple Google Chrome user is really an amazing concept. If you master it, you'll be able to manage multiple QuickBooks Online files, have them open. Of course, if you got multiple windows open, that would actually be pretty amazing. But that's actually a really, really good thing to have set up. So go ahead and close that. And let's expand this one. And let's get back into talking about the additional shortcuts. Now, let me go ahead and make sure. Now let me make sure that the bookmarks tab is showed up here and it's showing that my bookmarks. Now this is a new Google Chrome user, so all my previous bookmarks went away. Let me get rid of this apps shortcuts thing. I don't even know what that is. I don't use it. So I basically got a blank bookmarks menu there, which is fine because we can create them from scratch. So for example, let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and create a set of bookmarks. So I'm going to do a bookmarks for invoices because I like to have the invoices list set up there. So I'm going to click and drag that down here. And then I'm going to right click on edit, and I will call this one invoice list. Perfect. Let's say, for example, I want to have my vendor list. So I'm going to click here where it says vendors under expenses. And then I'm going to click and drag that into the bookmarks menu, and here it says vendors. So if I click on invoice list, it will open up my invoice list. If I click on vendors, it will open up my vendors. So pretty simple. Just right click and click on edit if you want to edit the name or edit the URL if you need to. Now, one really important thing, if you actually see a number right to the left of QBO, like for example, here's a C1, different QuickBooks files have different numbers. If you see those numbers there, you might want to delete those numbers and delete that dot, because if you're working with multiple QuickBooks company files under that Google Chrome user, you want to make sure that that number doesn't interfere on the access to that module. So it's difficult to explain. Just get rid of the number and you'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and that's it. So that's actually really cool. You can have multiple bookmarks in there, and you can customize that obviously whichever way you want. Now, another not so obvious, but it's just really underrated, is zoom in and zoom out. Like sometimes, depending on the circumstance, you might want to see more or see less. So for that, I click on Control plus or Control minus. If I'm on a Mac, that's Command plus and Command minus. So I'm going to hit Command minus and my screen gets zoomed out. I'm going to hit Control plus or Command plus and my screen gets zoomed in. So obviously, you're going to have to figure out, depending on your monitor size, how many windows you have open, how many monitors you have, what's going to be sort of your sweet spot on zooming in and zooming out. Usually I work somewhere between 90% and 125%, depending on what I'm trying to do. So that quick zoom in and zoom out is actually really awesome. All right, let's move on to QuickBooks Online keyboard shortcuts. Now, we talked about the escape key already, basically that closes every screen that's open. We're going to talk about tab, shift tab, the effects of enter, what exactly is enter, and then the control alt keys or the control option keys. So let's start with real quick review of the escape key. So if I go to new and then click on send an invoice, and I don't want that. All I do is I hit escape and it closes that window. Now if I click on new and I click on make sale, for example, and I start doing anything on this transaction, if I click on a customer and then I hit escape, it won't let me close it because QuickBooks assumes that I'm in the middle of a transaction, and it'll warn you whether or not you want to save it before you close it. So if you actually click yes or press enter, because what enter does, it basically presses the button that is highlighted. So we'll talk about highlighted buttons in a second. So if I press enter, that would actually follow through and close it and not save anything. Now let's talk about tab and shift tab. So for example, if I happen to be in a new invoice, let's go to a new invoice here, and I'm on the customer section. If I actually select the customer here and then I click on tab, QuickBooks will actually go to the next cell. So I can click on tab and it will cycle through all the cells, all the options that are in the screen. Now if you press too many tabs. Most people don't know this, and they'll actually take the mouse and go, oh, whoops, I really want to stay here, and they will actually click on the previous box. But the way this works is once you hit tab, if you want to go backwards, you hit shift tab. So shift tab goes backwards in the tab toggle process, and tab goes forward. Now, most people know this, but if you didn't, I think it behooves you to know it anyway. Now, at this point, the enter button doesn't do anything. In order for the enter button to be functional, and for most people, enter really means save, you have to select one of the buttons. Now, down here at the bottom, there's a button that says save, another one that says save and send. For me to go all the way down there, I would have to tab through all of the cells, and at some point when I'm finished tabbing through, notice I'm hitting tab a whole bunch of times, at some point, there it is. This gets highlighted. Now, if I click shift tab, notice that, and it's very subtle, my customize button is the one that's highlighted. I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to hit shift tab one more time, then make recurring is highlighted. I'll click shift tab, now print preview is highlighted, shift tab, now clear is highlighted. I'm going to do tab, and notice how this, and it's very, very subtle, it gets highlighted. Now in the buttons, it's a little bit more obvious because you see that round white outline around it. So if that save is highlighted, then at that point when I press enter, it will actually toggle that button. Now I'm going to show you a different screen where this becomes a little bit more functional, but it's important for you to know that enter doesn't always do exactly what you want it to do, because QuickBooks can't really guess what you're trying to do with enter. But if I press enter right now, it will try to save. The only issue is I haven't selected really a dollar value on this invoice. So I'll just pick something here and just put $1 there. That way I can now press enter to save it. So let me just tab through once. So now I'm on save now. So all the way to save. Now I press an enter, and that will actually save it. And if there's any errors or anything like that, obviously that will pop up. And then notice that yes is the one that's highlighted. If I hit tab, it will now tap or highlight the no. If I hit tab one more time, it will move back and forth through the no and the yes. I'm going to zoom in real quick to show you. I'm going to hit tab, and every time I hit tab, it's the yes and the no that are toggling through the highlight. So if I press enter on anything that's highlighted, it will execute that action. So again, enter is not that perfect button, but depending on the transaction that you're in, it might be. I'll show you an example where it is. I'm going to hit escape to get out of that. Let me go into the bank register. So the bank register is, we're going to go into the chart of accounts. And hint, hint, you probably should bookmark the chart of accounts too, because we got a chart of accounts all the time. So I'm going to put it up there in the bookmark bar. So I'm going to go into my Chase Bank account, and I click on View Register, and it will open the register screen. I'm going to close that, and again, the repeating concept here. Let's click and drag that down to the bookmarks bar, because the check register is actually a really important place to be. So I'm in the check register here, and then I want to enter some data here as fast as possible. For whatever reason, I couldn't download it from the bank, and I'm actually forced to enter data straight into the register. Now, most people don't know this and don't take advantage of this, and very rarely you'll have to enter data by hand, because QuickBooks Online, it's pretty awesome, and most times you don't have to, but when you do, you want to do it in here. So I'm going to click on the baby gear menu, or the small gear menu, not the gear menu all the way in the top, but the one sort of inside the register. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to choose two options: show one line, so show in one line, and then also paper ledger mode. These two are amazing. So I'm going to click on these two, and that will change the entire dynamic of the screen. It will now select the last line as the data entry screen instead of the one all the way in the top, which makes it feel a bit more natural, more like an Excel spreadsheet. I'm also going to click on compact, because I want this to look a little bit tighter, and again, feel a little bit more like a spreadsheet, because when we're used to doing data entry, spreadsheet is really what makes us feel comfortable or efficient. So once I do that, now I'm going to enter transactions straight in here. So to do that, I'm just going to click on payee over here, and I'm going to create my vendor's name. So I'm going to create one called Chipotle. Okay, the Chipotle is already there. Let's do Staples. So I typed Staples, and it's not in my database. So at this point, I can press enter, and the new name will pop up, and press enter one more time, and it will save it that quickly. So now I'm going to click tab, and let me select the account category. So I'm going to type here office expenses. I'm going to press enter, tab, and then I'll put the dollar amount, $26.90, and then I press enter, which doesn't do anything. As I mentioned earlier, I have to press tab, 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 and then press save. Let's do one more. Now, the default place is going to be dates. So in dates, I'm going to hit tab. Let me put a check number here. Let's say it's check 501. Hit tab. Let's say I'm going to write this check to Hector. So I'm going to type here Hector Garcia. Tab, enter. Tab. Let's put contractors. Let's create a new account called subcontractors. So subcontractors. Press enter. This will automatically default to bank, which is not good. So actually I can hit tab to go straight into the first box. Click on the drop-down menu, which I basically just click down arrow, go down to the category. So let's say it's expenses, press enter, tab, 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 enter. So that's basically without having to use a keyboard shortcut. Then hit tab, let's put $400. So now I'm gonna hit Control Alt S or Control Option S on a Mac. And what that will do, that will enable the save button and save the transaction. So those are actually the quickest ways you can actually work sort of in combination of tab, enter, and some of the keyboard shortcuts. And we're going to get deep into the Control Alt keys or Control Option keys for the Mac. Now I'm going to show you one more shortcut, which is extremely important, which is the dating shortcut. So depending on what date today is, QuickBooks might default the date to today's date or the last date that was used. So, but if I happen to have some other date that's not the date that I want, let's say for example the date that gets highlighted is 12/31/2019, and the date that I want to jump into is today's date. So depending on what today's date is, all you have to do is press T on the keyboard, and this date will automatically switch to today's date. Let me show you that one more time. Let's say for example I got some random date up there and I don't have to actually type the date. I just press T on the keyboard and that would jump to today's date. Obviously that's the day that I recorded the video. Now some of the other cool things that you need to know about dating shortcuts is you can press the plus and the minus button. Plus will go up a date, minus will go down a date. Really, really important. Plus and minus. Sometimes we're entering transactions that are all within a couple of days apart, and all we have to do is press plus and minus, and that will get us to the exact date that we want. The other thing you can do is use the other shortcuts, such as M. M will do beginning of the month, and then H will do end of the month. Now you can press Y to go to the beginning of the year, and then press R to go to the end of the year. Now what's cool about this is if you press them several times, it'll continue to toggle through. So if I want to go to the beginning of the year, beginning of the year, beginning of the year, beginning of the year, I just press Y a bunch of times. So look, Y, 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 Y. Every time I press Y, it went back to the beginning of the year. Same thing with R, 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 R. So most importantly, Y, R for year, T for today, M, H for month. Now in some cases, you're going to want to open up that calendar. So you can actually just click on the calendar icon and open up that calendar if you want to. Or what's really, really cool, you can press Alt down arrow or Option down arrow on a Mac, and it will actually open up the calendar, which might or might not be useful because you're still going to have to use the mouse to select the actual date that you want to record the transaction for. All right, let's move on to Control Alt keys or Control Option keys on the Mac. I'm going to hit Control Alt question mark. On a Mac would be Control Option question mark. So once I do that, a window will pop up telling me what are all my keyboard shortcuts to access specific transactions, and in some cases to do specific actions inside of transactions. So for example, if you see here, if I press Control Alt I or Control Option I, it will open an invoice. Control Alt W or Control Option W will open a check, and so forth. So let's go ahead and close that and see how that works. So I'm going to hit Control Alt I or Control Option I on a Mac. That opened up an invoice. Beautiful. Control Alt E, it opens up the estimate. Let's press Escape. Control Alt X, it will open the expense. So really, really cool how you can quickly get to certain transactions. Let's do Control Alt question mark again and see a couple of extra ones here. So some of my favorites here, Control Alt A and Control Alt L, A for chart of accounts, L for list. So let me hit Escape. Escape doesn't work here. Oh, okay, press Enter. Enter doesn't work here. Let's just hit the X over there. All right, so let's do Control Alt A, chart of accounts, beautiful thing. Control Alt L, again, Control Option for a Mac, Control Option L, our list, which you can also access, as I mentioned earlier, through the gear menu. Let's go back to Control Alt question mark and look at the right side. So we got here Control Alt X to exit the transaction, which literally just works by hitting escape. Then we have Control Alt C, which cancels out. I don't use that very much, so I will skip that. Then we have Control Alt S, Control Alt D, and Control Alt M. Those are actually pretty cool. So let's explore them. Let me go ahead and open up a new invoice. Control Alt I opens up the new invoice. Let me select a couple of things at random here. Let's pick some items. Let's pick some dollar amounts. And then let's start with Control Alt S or Control Option S. So Control Alt S, so what that did is it saved it and created a new one. So Control Alt S is a save and new. Now you will notice if you click on the save and send button on the little triangle to the right of it, if you actually hover into any of those options, you see the keyboard shortcut there. So Control Alt S would be save and new, and Control Alt D would be save and close. Control Alt L is save and share link. And then the one that's not highlighted right now, save and send, is Control Alt M. So if I actually click on Control Alt M, it would actually force me to put an email because it can't save and send if there isn't an email. So if I put an email here and then hit, so I basically just created an email for the customer. And then I'm going to select just some things at random here so we can have a full transaction. If I press Control Alt M, it will save and send and open up the send screen. So it's pretty cool. Now, it really depends on what you're trying to do. You're going to see all sorts of ways that you want to use one function or the other function. I mean, save and new is awesome. Control Alt S, awesome, because maybe you want to create a couple of transactions back to back. That would really speed up your process. And the last one here is Hector Ultimate QBO Bookmarks menu. Let's talk about that. So I went ahead and switched out to my other Google Chrome user that I already had set up that has this QBO shortcuts menu. Let me delete these that we had created here for a second, just to kind of show you the dynamic of this. So I'm telling you, you're going to love this. So first of all, I manually created the shortcuts menu literally by clicking on every single button on the screen frantically until something popped up, and I went in there and I created the shortcut and I built a menu, a custom menu around it. Now the way I organize this menu is to have the most commonly used things in the top, like the home page, chart of accounts, search, journal entry, but then I organized it into folders so I can know where things are, and they're organized sort of in the priority, in the way, and based on how often I use them. Now you can change the order of these literally by just right-clicking on the Bookmarks menu and clicking where it says Bookmarks Manager. And then you notice that I have my QBO shortcuts folder there. Just double-click on that. Double-click on Customers and Sales, and I can click and drag any of these and just change the order. So whatever order I want to have these in, I can do that. I can also delete them if I don't want to see any of them in particular. I can just right-click and delete them. I would recommend that you don't delete them. Maybe create another folder and dump them in there if you don't want to use them. To create a folder, pretty simple stuff. I'm just going to go into my QBO shortcuts menu and then right-click anywhere sort of in the bottom or any blank space and click on New Folder. And I can type here, My Favorites. So I basically created a folder called My Favorites. Click on Save. I'm going to click and drag this all the way to the top. And then I'm going to just close this out and go back into QuickBooks Online and then click on my QBO shortcuts menu. And there it is, My Favorites. So I can actually figure out which are my favorites. So let's say, for example, the home page is one of my favorites. At this point, I can just click and drag this one to the bookmarks bar. Let me delete this one that's already there. And then I right click on that, click on edit, and I'll call this homepage. And you see what I'm getting. So I'm going to click and drag this, put it inside the shortcuts menu, put it in favorites, and just dump it in there. So now it's inside favorites. Now let me open up search. And let me click and drag this one into the bookmarks bar. And then click and drag it into my favorites. Dump it in there. Let's say I'm going to go into all sales. Perfect. Click and drag that in there. Put that into my favorites. And let's go to profit and loss. Let's go to profit and loss. There we go. Drag it into the bookmarks menu. Right click, edit. we'll call this one P&L. It's important to give it an easy name to read, so it's not taking a bunch of space in your bookmarks bar. Click and drag that and put it into my favorites. Now, the reason to have a my favorites folder has numerous reasons, but one of the reasons I do it is once I log into QuickBooks Online and I'm on the dashboard, let's say I want to have a set of tabs open that has all the stuff that I currently use. So I go into favorites, I'm going to right click on favorites and then click on open all in new window. Now this is really, really interesting stuff. Once I click on drag, it would actually open up a brand new window and all the tabs will be open. Now I'm going to close out of that for a second just to show you something. Let's say, for example, I happen to be in the reports menu and then I click on the QBO shortcuts and click on my favorites, right click on that, and then I can click on open all four. Not new window, but just open all four. Click on that and it won't open a new window. It will just open them to the right, which is pretty neat. Okay, so now I have everything that I already had open plus the extra ones from my favorite. Now, what I really love about having multiple tabs open is that there's actually a Google Chrome shortcut that most people don't use, which is basically Control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 9. In the Mac would be with Command. So for example, if I press Command 2, it will jump to the second tab. If I press Command 4, the fourth tab I have open, so let me show you. I'm gonna hit Command 4 or Control 4 on a PC, it will go to the fourth tab. So if you actually have a specific workflow in place where you always have 5 tabs open, if your 5 main tabs, you'll memorize that, you know, Control 1 through Control 5 is to get to those specific screens. So you want to go to a profit and loss screen real quick, I hit Control 5 and there it is. There's my profit and loss. Now sometimes when I'm changing transactions, my profit and loss doesn't get updated automatically. So let's say I'm looking at my P&L right now and I'm going to create a new transaction. So let's say I go to another tab, for example, and I want you to make sure that you see that my revenue is $53,500 and I'm in a different screen and I'm going to go ahead and create a new invoice. I'll pick a customer here, pick an item. Let's pick a really large dollar amount to make sure that we see that change in the P&L. I'm going to click Save and Close, and then I'm going to hit Control 5 or Command 5, go back to my P&L. It's not refreshed. I have to actually click on Run Report to refresh it, which is kind of the issue. So one really cool thing is you can hit Control R or Command R on the Mac and refresh your report. So now you're going to see that in there. So that's Control R or Command R, depending on whether you're in a PC or a Mac. So real quick, if you got to this point, you learned a whole bunch. This is the commitment I want from you. Definitely hit like, definitely subscribe to the channel. You're going to see tons of videos coming this year with tons of content like this. Speed up, work faster, work better. Check the description below. I'm going to have all the links to all the references that I mentioned in the video and additional videos that kind of talk about this topic of being more efficient, working faster. Now, you can actually purchase my QBO shortcuts menu. I'm going to put a link in the description below for $25. You pay $25 and you're going to get this exact same menu. That way you don't have to spend hours like I did looking for all these links and creating the menu by yourself. Trust me, best $25 you spend. You also have the option to pay $20 per year, not $25, $20 per year. Yes, per year. But if you get the subscription option, I'm actually going to update this menu every time a new feature comes out. Every time I discover new ways of getting access to different places, you're going to get notified via email. You'll be able to download the most updated QBO shortcuts menu. So you can either pay $25, get the full list that you see here on the screen, or pay $20 per year, and then you will get email notified every time there's a change for it. And I will be making changes to this menu like I have been in the last 3 years, because this is how I navigate QuickBooks Online myself. It only wasn't until recently that it occurred to me to sell my shortcuts menu, and it sells a lot. So I guarantee you'll see tons of value in it. Anyway, if you love this video, make sure that you let the world know, subscribe, have some comments below. Did I miss something? What should the next video be about? Thank you very much. Till the next one.